Hey guys, this is Dr. LaHue. I'm going to be talking today about the book Take Back Your Marriage. I'm going to be talking about the section called Don't Lose Your Marriage for Your Kids. And this chapter was really helpful to me. I think my wife and I, to some degree, could really benefit from this information because, with 5 kids and a couple of our kids have some health concerns. It can be easy to get focused on, so focused on taking care of your kids that it can actually be costly to the marriage. And I think this is information that could be helpful to a lot of couples that are, a lot of families that, of course you love your kids and you want to take care of them, and it's easy for them to take priority and at the cost of your marriage, because your kids, a lot of times they're the most helpless people in the house, and so they're always, vying for your attention, and it seems like they're always needing something, and legitimately they have needs that sometimes their needs can take priority and precedence over to the marriage, to the detriment of the marriage. So far in the other videos that have come from this book, we've really talked about the consumer-oriented mentality. Let me say that again. The consumer-oriented mentality, which is, kind of the me first, what I want right now. And of course, there's a lot of dangers, associated with that in the marriage. Well, this is more like the problems of the children first approach to marriage, which is easy for couples. I know my wife and I we love our kids, and we do extremely value that relationship, and they're a priority, and it's easy to kind of shift if you're not careful and make them the priority, and so it can be a danger to the marriage. I'm just going to read a couple of the quotes that I've highlighted and underlined, and then see where it takes me and maybe talk about it. There is a difference between adjusting your marriage to meet your children's needs and losing your marriage to parenthood. And really that's what this chapter is about, is if you're not careful, you can kind of lose the marriage in taking care of the needs of your kids. They become the priority. They become, the focus, and all of your attention is dedicated to them, that you can kind of, sacrifice the intimacy that you should have as a couple, because you're always running. We live in this age of kind of helicopter parents or hyper-functioning parents. But hyper-functioning parents often allow kids to be under-functioning. If the parents rush in and rescue the kids all the time, which is, what helicopter parents do, then kids may not necessarily have to develop the skills necessary to adjust to life themselves. In other words, they can underfunction. And we'll talk about that a little bit more, I think. Typical middle-class family today's world revolve around the parents' work schedules and the children's schedules of activities. And, with both parents working nowadays, which is very common, sometimes multiple jobs. It's not uncommon, I see couples all the time where it's not like the husband has a job and the wife has a job, but maybe the husband has a job and then he has a second job, or the wife has a second job. Or maybe they're into multi-level marketing or something. And so with that busy schedule, then on top of that, children not only sometimes are schooled or homeschooled, but they have their own calendars. They have their activities that they have to do as well. And so parents end up shuttling them. It can really, with multiple children like we have, it doesn't take long before that schedule is full. And there's not really any margin time or downtime to just be a family or to just interact as a family. The idea of let's sit down and play a game together. Those are kind of like, you got to go back to my generation or before, because people just don't have the energy to do that. They're lucky to just crash and throw in a Hot Pocket and watch a movie together. Because even at TV time, what happens is dad goes into the bedroom, watches his TV, and, the kids are all in their own rooms watching, Netflix on their phones, and nobody's even in the TV room. Nobody's even in the TV room watching that TV. Everybody's kind of gone off to watch their own programs, that sort of me first, consumer-oriented mentality. We're all, we're watching television, but we're not watching it together. I've happened before where, I've gone out in the living room and one of the kids is out there watching a Disney show, Hannah Montana or something, and then I come in the bedroom and another kid's in the bedroom watching the same TV show, but they don't want to watch the same episode. They've seen the same episodes, 30 times, but I don't want to watch that episode she's watching, so I'm going to come in here and watch this episode I want to watch. And it gets kind of crazy. So there can sometimes be no couple schedule, no schedule for, the couple. It's just family schedule, or we're running kids schedules, or we're running, a list of activities we got to do, but there's no time for us to just be a couple together. Nearly all the conversations that the couple has are just centered on like family logistics. There's no intimacy in the conversation. So the husband and wife, when they do sit down to talk, if they get time, to talk, they're talking about, well, what do we got to do tomorrow? Well, doctor's appointment, and then who's going to pick up who. And so there's not really any sharing, conversation. There's no conversation that's really, intimate in terms of like sharing hopes, dreams, plans, ideas, that kind of stuff. And the conversations that we have as a couple get interrupted constantly. And, the kids, because you're a child-centered family rather than a marriage-centered family, it would feel rude if I told my kid, hey, you know what, mom and dad are talking right now, you need to wait. And so kids kind of grow up with this idea that they can just interrupt mom and dad's schedule anytime they want, interrupt conversations, that what I have to say is important right now, and you need to answer my question right now, or I'm going to text you right now, and you need to go find my paper or go find my book bag right now. And so kids feel like they have the right to just interrupt whatever conversations are going on, and parents feel like they're being rude if they tell the child stop. You just got to wait a second. I thought that was, pretty helpful, because I think my wife and I, we kind of let our kids interrupt our conversations. And what that leads to is kind of like no off-duty time for just mom and dad to relax. And couples need that. They need that off-duty time when they can just tell their kids, look, we're just going to watch TV, and, we don't want to be interrupted. That seems rude. I know it does. But it takes more than being good parents to keep intimacy alive. You can get so focused on your kids and so focused on their schedule that, the marriage kind of goes on a shelf. There you go. That's something that the author mentions. The marriage kind of goes on a shelf. And you can do that for a while. I mean, a marriage, we're adults. Especially if there's a crisis, we got a sick child or a parent, one of our parents that needs attention or something. You can kind of put your marriage on a shelf because we're adults. But the problem is sometimes the marriage stays on that shelf for too long because, the kid has an urgent need, and so the marriage can kind of, go take a back seat for too long sometimes. Doesn't get the attention that it deserves. Feel torn between your spouse and your children, and so often you'll go to your children and help them because they need you more, or they are not as able to just adjust without you as well as your spouse can. Children are developing, therefore, a sense of entitlement to their parents' time and their parents' attention. They feel like, I need your attention, I need it now. And so they never really kind of grow out of that watch me phase. Watch me. Look, I'm on a slide. Watch me. I'm riding my bike. Watch me. They just kind of continually live in that watch me state. Marriage. Now, this is important. The marriage is the foundation of the family, and it's the core relationship in the home. And I think that's something that marriages need to be called back to, and you're good parents, but your marriage relationship has to be the primary core relationship in the home, and everything else is built on that pyramid base. The base is that marriage relationship. So we establish a good marriage and then build on that to become good parents, and it doesn't usually work the other way around. Just because you're good parents and attentive parents doesn't mean you're going to have a strong marriage. But a strong marriage is a great foundation to becoming good parents and giving your kids a solid foundation on which a family can grow. Our children rely on the stability and the security of our marriage for their own stability and security. And so if there's a secure marriage, it provides the foundation for a secure family. So just because you're good at being a parent, if you're failing at marriage, eventually, kind of like think like this: if the marriage is sour, then the family's going to be sour. If the marriage isn't the priority, then eventually the parenting's going to crumble, or you're going to over-attend to your kids to meet your relationship needs. Because my wife or my husband isn't there for me or isn't attentive to me, then you're going to require too much attention and too much intimacy maybe between parent and child. You're going to lean on your children to meet those relationship needs that should be met in the marriage. So you want to focus on getting a healthy marriage and then build off of that as healthy parents, or as parents. Children are natural and eager consumers of whatever time, attention, goods, and services the parents will provide. Okay, so I think you got that. Children are consumers. The more attention and whatever you show them, the more they're going to require. So they're going to eat up and use up your schedule, eat up and use up your time and attention, and there's no there's no necessarily concern for your health as a parent. They're just going to continually ask for more. It's the job of the parent. Now listen to this. It's the job of the parent to discern how much time, attention, and goods and services and all that is appropriate for the child, because the child's not going to be able to judge for themselves. They're just always going to want more. It's the job of the parent to discern how much is enough and how much is too much, and then to enforce the difference. In other words, I'm available to you as a parent till bedtime, and then at bedtime, which needs to be consistent, 8:30, 9:30, whatever appropriate for the age of the child, then I'm off duty as a parent. And you can interrupt me if there's an emergency, but otherwise you need to be in your room, and you need to be lights out. You need to be in your room, and I'm not going to come running every time you have a desire to talk about something. You're in your room and you're done. It's bedtime. But if you don't enforce that as a parent, the child's not going to enforce it themselves. They're always going to push the boundary. They're always going to try to stay up later. They're always going to try to get more and get a better deal, because they have that consumer-oriented mentality as well. So we all understand, you can spoil kids with material stuff. I think most parents get that if you give a child everything they want, you're going to probably have a miserable child, and they're going to be, miserable to live with. So we all get that concept that you can spoil kids easily by giving them everything that they want. But another way to spoil kids is giving them all the attention that they want. Giving them all the attention and all the opportunities, and let them sign up for all the recreation, that they want. And as you provide all of those as a parent, the expectation just increases that you're going to continue to provide all of those, and maybe even more. So children nowadays, this is a quote from the book, children nowadays own their parents. Just let that sink in for a minute, that thought. Children nowadays own their parents, and they own our schedules, and they own our time, and they own our resources, and they just have a very high expectation that, hey, I need this thing, so you need to go buy it. I have this, I want to go spend the weekend with my friend, or I want my friend to come over and spend the weekend with me, so you need to make that happen. And so, we kind of, the previous generations grew up in a time where children, when they're around adults, should be seen and not heard. Well, now it's exactly the opposite. When children are around, the kind of the unwritten rule is the parents, the adults, are seen and not heard. Whatever the kids want to talk about, whatever the kids need, then that becomes the focus of our conversation. That becomes the focus of our agenda. That becomes the focus of our time and our attention. It's whatever the kids, need or want. That's what we talk about. Their schedules, what they want to do this weekend, where they want to eat, what they will eat, what they won't eat, and what kind of clothes they want, what stores they want to shop at. So there's been a shift, and I think it's because we want to be attentive to our kids, but maybe we're a little too willing to kind of give in to whatever they want to talk about, or whatever they want. And a lot of it may be just because maybe we feel guilty as parents. Maybe our marriages aren't very good, or maybe our homes have split up, and so we feel guilty. And so just like, guilty parents may go out and spend a lot of money on their kids, maybe guilty parents, give in to their kids' demands in other ways. Or maybe we just didn't have a good example growing up ourselves, and so we're just trying to do the best we can do, and we feel like, giving them attention all the time, is the best thing we can do. Again, there's a lot of families that are the opposite. They don't give their kids enough attention. I think that's a shame too. But the idea of, like, for example, bedtimes, they talk about a lot in this book. Bedtimes, that concept is vanishing from families, and it's a healthy. Bedtimes can bring about a lot of rituals in the family, like, we read together, pray together, talk about the day, talk about what's going to happen tomorrow, hug and kiss and those kind of things. Those can all be good rituals that are associated with bedtime, but maybe parents don't want to enforce bedtimes because kids throw a fit or pitch a fit, and it's just not worth dealing with it when you can just turn the TV on and walk out. And so a lot of kids go to bed, the same way adults do, watching The Late Show, Let's see. So that whole idea of, when are you off duty as a parent? Is it okay for you to be off duty as a parent? Is it okay for you to say, look, we're off duty right now, or we're going to get a babysitter, and we're going to spend some time together as a couple. We're going to dress up, and it's good to see for kids, to see mom and dad dressing up, being adults and being people. We're going to dress up, and we're going to go, to the show, and we're going to go out to dinner, and you're going to be okay. This person's going to take care of you, and you're going to be all right. That can be healthy for kids to see that mom and dad have a life. Mom and dad love each other. Mom and dad get along with one another. And eventually, maybe that'll help them. It'll create that stability that, I'm okay without mom and dad 100% of the day being with me and watching over me. I'm okay. I don't need a helicopter parent. That they have a life too. And they love each other. And that love provides a stable foundation for that child to grow up in. Parenting has become like operating a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week store with service on demand. Of course, parenting has always been a full-time job, but nowadays, it's not just being on call for our children's core needs, but listen, being ready to respond instantly, as if your child is a customer in your store. Okay, so that kind of stings a little bit. Because I think all of us, maybe have erred a little, at least at times, with maybe catering to our kids' demands a little too much. On the home scene, children of all ages now have a universal human right to interrupt any adult conversation they want. And they do this. They do this in my home. And we're going to have some talks. We're going to have some talks about that around our house. Interrupt any conversation anytime for any reason. And the adult must immediately disengage from their conversation with another adult, or husband and wife, mom and dad. They got to disengage their conversation and attend immediately to my huge concern. I can't find the soap. I'm going to take a bath and I can't find the soap I want. So where is it, Mom? Stop talking and tell me right now where my bottle of soap is. And so they need to disengage from their conversation and turn immediately to my needs as a child. That's kind of the day in which we live in. Many parents now define rudeness not as the child interrupting them, but if they were to continue on, mom and dad talking, and tell the child to wait, well, then that would feel rude to the parent. And so we need to teach the child what to say, excuse me, and then politely wait until we can give our attention to them. And so it's easy to kind of neglect your marriage because you're trying to give so much attention and care and concern to your kids. If your children have learned that their desire for attention always trumps your marriage, then you will have to be patient with their complaints when you start to make the shift back to a more healthy environment. Let your kids know that mom and dad like to spend time with each other, that mom and dad like to have conversations with each other, and don't apologize for creating more balance in your home, which is what you're doing. You're creating more balance. You're coming back to that central focus and saying, look, mom and dad's relationship is a priority and their marriage is a priority. And so I don't need to apologize for shifting back to a more balance. And then they say, help your kids to see themselves as citizens of the family rather than customers of the family. Not just unhappy customers and users of services, and then be firm about the changes and don't backtrack. Say, look, bedtime is at whatever time, and at that time I'm off duty. Or another example they gave was, I'm going to help you with your homework, but I'm not going to help you after 8:30. So if you want help with your homework, let's get it done now. Because don't be coming to me after 8:30, at 10 o'clock saying, I got a paper I got to do, Mom, Dad, help me. No. You need to learn to be responsible, and you're going to have to live with the consequences if you're not. And that's real life. And if you can do that as a parent, help them to understand real life consequences now under the protection and shelter and care of the home, then maybe they can, learn those lessons in the safety of a home so that they're able to better process as an adult later in life. And they will eventually come to value the shift that's happening in their family. When your marriage becomes a priority, they're going to resist that at first because, obviously they want their demands met when they make them. But over time, the hope is that they will learn to appreciate the safety and the security that comes from knowing that mom and dad are stable. All right, so here's some strategies, or here's some to-do steps and how to kind of take back your home from your kids. Take back your marriage from your kids. Okay, so if you're married, remind yourself repeatedly that your marriage is the foundation of your family. It's the cornerstone of your children's security. It's the primary, not the secondary relationship. And everybody's well-being will be improved as you improve your marriage. Okay, so don't feel bad that you're giving attention to what's most important. And again, if the marriage is sour, there's a good chance the family's going to go sour, eventually. So let's, these conflicted marriages can lead to bad parenting. Okay, next, remind yourself repeatedly that children are apt to be better fighters for their needs than you are. Okay, so when there's a need, quote unquote need, children are going to fight to have those needs met. You're likely to give in. That's what we want to do, is we want to give in and meet needs. And they're kind of programmed to get attention and to make demands. And now you and your husband or you and your wife need to start fighting for your needs as a married couple. So realize your kids already are wired and programmed to fight for their needs. Now you're going to have to start fighting for the health and safety of your marriage. So lean in on your marriage, and you'll probably be okay as parents. Lean in on your marriage, you'll probably be okay as parents. Limit your family's outside activities. Okay, so that's just exactly what it sounds like. Is sometimes you can get over-scheduled to the point that you don't have any margin or any downtime to really just be a family or to give time to your marriage. Have fixed bedtimes for your children when you're off duty as a couple. I've already talked about that a lot. Don't let your children interrupt every conversation. Tell them that they need to wait, and then we'll get around to it in a minute. Let us finish our conversation. And for some conversations between husband and wife, if maybe you're planning the weekend or something, and you don't right now want a lot of input from the kids because maybe it can lead to greater frustration, then maybe you just need to go in your bedroom and shut the door and tell the kids mom and dad are going to talk about this weekend, and do it away from the kids. I know with 5 kids, one of the things that I learned when they were really little was I can start an argument really fast and not even intend to, and not even being, and that's not my intention. I can just look back in the back of the van, 5 kids in the back, and say, hey, where do you guys want to eat? And I've already started an argument. And I didn't mean to. I was trying to be nice. I was trying to let them have some input. We're passing a Burger King, and over here's a Fazoli's, and there's a Taco Bell, and where do you guys want to eat? And guess what? One of them will argue for their restaurant. The other one says, oh, no, I hate that place. I don't want to go there. And I started an argument, and I was just trying to let them have some input. And eventually, I'd have to just make the decision and say, all right, where we're going? Here's where we're going. And by then, everybody's frustrated. And so there are some conversations, that mom and dad may have to just separate themselves into a different room and say, we'll get back to you in a minute after we've decided. And maybe let them give, some minor input, like what time which one of the movies do you want to go to? You want to go to the 3 o'clock or the 5 o'clock? But we've decided what movie we're going to because, all right. So next, limit the amount of time you devote to your children's school homework every night. Next, carve out private time for yourselves as a couple. Maybe you could have a date night once a week, every Thursday night, or, carve out private space. Don't feel bad that, hey, we're going to shut the door and mom and dad are going in the bedroom. We're going to talk for a while, or we're just going to spend some time together. get sitters and go out on dates. It sends your kid a message that we like to do special things together, that we value each other's company. Next, never complain about your spouse to the children. Now, one of the things they mention is, sometimes you can be frustrated and it's going to happen. You're going to say, you'll even argue in front of your kids, and that's okay as long as you make up in front of your kids. Let your kids see that you've made up and you're showing affection again, and that helps them to realize that arguments are natural and disagreements are natural, but it's important that we work things out and we make up. But I think what he's talking about here is sometimes, we can be so frustrated with our spouse that maybe we kind of look to our kids, especially if they're a little older, as like our therapist. I can't believe what mom said. Can you believe this? I don't know what's going on. I don't know what's gotten into her mind. I don't know what. And when you do that, the warning here is that you're teaching your kids that your relationship with your kids is the primary relationship and your marriage is your secondary relationship, because you and we understand how crazy dad is. Okay, and so what you're doing there is you're undermining the stability in your home, and you're complaining downhill, which you military people, you don't do that. You don't complain downhill. There's no point in going to the children unless you're trying to build a coalition. Look, it's you and I against your mom. It's you and I against your dad, and again, that's just undermining the whole stability of the family. So be careful about, airing your dirty laundry in your marriage with the kids, because it's going to backfire on you. Let them see that you're affectionate and you've made up. You can get away for a special weekend, or for a hotel overnight as a couple. There's nothing wrong with that. If you need a babysitter, just say, look, mom and dad are going to go away for a couple days, and we're going to go see, some historical sites and just putter around and just have a good time. Be open with your children about what you're doing for your marriage. Maybe you're going to take a class or something. Let your kids know that you're reading books and that this is an important priority for you, or you're watching videos. This is an important priority for you. The greater danger for most of us is losing our marriage at the demands of parenthood. And so if you got to feel like you're leaning in one direction or the other, lean toward your marriage and you'll probably be okay as parents. But lean toward parenting and you may suffer as a marriage. And if you suffer as a marriage, maybe you'll end up split up and divorced, and then parenting's going to have even more trouble. So lean toward marriage and you'll probably be okay as parents. So be a marriage-centered family. Let me read this again. The greater danger for most of us is to lose our marriage to the demands of parenthood rather than losing our kids to the demands of our marriage. So if you're going to err a little bit, err on the side of protecting and giving time and attention and cultivating a good marriage, and you'll probably be okay as parents. Marriages can sit on the shelf for a while, but when they're left on the shelf for too long, it creates... they eventually start to dry up and wither. The greatest danger of having a child-centered marriage is that when the children leave home, so does your marriage. So if all the time and all the attention and the only conversations and everything is devoted to our kids, what happens when kids grow up and move away? Then maybe the marriage is so stale that it's difficult to rekindle that original closeness of that relationship. If you're not intentional about your marriage, high parenting can come at a price. Okay, so be careful about focusing all your attention there. Last thing I want to mention is from the last part of this chapter is to teach your children that you value your marriage without devaluing them. That we're mates first before we're parents, and that the solar system of our marriage is of our family is our marriage. That's the sun, and the children are the planets, rather than the other way around. All right, so I think this is a helpful chapter. I know it's helpful for me and my wife because, it's easy to put the kids' needs first because they're so needy all the time. But helping them learn to distinguish what their needs are and what their demands are, and then teaching them responsibility to wait and be patient for their demands to be met, and that we're not servants, who are just there to meet all their demands, that they are citizens of this family and have certain responsibilities just like everybody else does to this family. And so rescue your marriage from your kids. All right, until I see you next time, blessings, guys, and be present to life.